good afternoon, and welcome to yet another edition of the Bermuda Day Half Marathon Derby Countdown. I'm your host, Earl Based, and joining me is none other than the one and only Jay Donawa. Jay, as we all know, captured a victory in the Bermuda Day Half Marathon, running away with it onto Dutton Avenue, and that's when the finish line was there. Jay, since then, they've moved it on to Court Street. Different. You'd have had some more to run, but it is what it is. But Jay, first of all, let me get this out of the way. Congratulations. You attended your son's graduation over the weekend. I must say what you've been able to assist in putting in with these boys has been nothing short of remarkable, and I wanted to acknowledge that right from the start.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I heard your voice is still a little shaky. You had a little tear here and there the other day.
Yeah, it's always good, to see the kids reaching milestones. So for Jace, he just graduated from high school. I guess the significance of it was that when he ran out there was in the height of the pandemic,
right,
in 2021. So there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of the academic component of it, in terms of whether the school was going to continue with like in-class learning, or they were going to go strictly like online, like how they were doing in Bermuda. But they stuck with it, and Jace pretty much did the entire period in class learning, which was really good. I mean, he caught COVID a couple of times, but he shook it off, and here he is 4 years later. He's a high school graduate, and this is just a step to to some other things that we have planned for him in the future.
Stuff. Great stuff. Well, Jay, let's talk a little bit about the race itself. What aspects of the Bermuda Day Half Marathon do you feel suited your running style best, and when did you adapt your training to capitalize on those strengths?
Yeah, I had a natural ability to run hills and all that, because I was my strength was cross country, so I had the ability to be able to negotiate the undulations of the hills on the course. I mean, primarily running out of Somerset. During my time, I think I ran twice out of St. George. This was 15, the inaugural year, 2015, and then 17, the year I won. So slightly different course, different sort of component to it. But for me, the ability to be able to negotiate the hills and everything, I think, was a strength for me. I just had to adapt my training specifically for the half marathon, because like a lot of the other runners probably who you've probably interviewed, like Terrence and Mike Watson and all that, we all came from like more of a track sort of background. And it is an adjustment, adjusting from track to the road, and especially a half marathon of that sort of, Bermuda's half marathon is a little different from what you normally get when you travel overseas. They're more flat and fast. This is a real test of strength, endurance, and just your whole commitment. Yeah.
Sure. Look, a side question. Looking at the year you won it, there was some doubt. You wasn't planning to do it, were you?
No, it was. It like I said, like I think I told you before, after the race, it was definitely like a year that nothing fell in place other than winning the race. I mean, it was like I wasn't in the best shape. Health-wise, I was experiencing some different things. And even when I went down there that morning, I was dropped off out by RAA Club, and I warmed up out there. And when I was out there, you had that quick little moment of like, man, I don't even know if I want to do this. But then I was saying, well, how am I going to get back to get home? So I made my way to the starting line, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. When you the atmosphere for Bermuda Day, it's quite unique. How did you harness the energy of the crowds and significance of the day itself to fuel your performances throughout, the tender of racing that particular race?
Yeah, it takes it takes a little while to get used to it because everybody like really enjoys the day, but nobody really pays attention to running too much outside of the week of 24th of May. Everybody
Yes.
becomes sort of more enthused with it, and it could be a little bit onerous, a little taxing because you start getting phone calls you don't usually get, and
Hmm.
when you really want a quiet moment, you're starting to be bombarded with a lot of I wouldn't say unnecessary, but it's support, but it's things you don't get any other weekend, in Bermuda.
Yeah.
So it's a race that obviously, you know, no matter what you do in your running career, if you don't win 24th of May, it doesn't. You can make it to the Olympics, but if you don't if you don't win 24th of May, somehow, some way, that you don't get the sort of credit, like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it's special. It's special, and it's representing obviously coming from the West, and the majority of my races came out of the West. So it was really really good to be able to run out of there and have such a the crowd support all the way, all the way to the finish line. But there were definitely points of that I really enjoyed, in 24th of May, coming out of the West, especially like for somebody that spent no time really in the Camp Hill area. I just
Mhm.
found that to be that was special for me. I know some people it's Cedar Avenue, but for me, Camp Hill, running through
That
Camp Hill
noise. That
in the
noise.
lead or amongst the leaders,
Yeah.
it's yeah, the crowd just narrows, and it's special. It was really really special to run through there, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. But I must say, you won coming from the best place in Bermuda, the East.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's debatable, but it's debatable. I think I told MP Renee Ming some time back. I said she reminded me of that. Said it took you to run out of St. George to win. And I said, yeah, I said because I really wanted to just get out of there so badly. That was my motivation. That was my motivation. So yeah, she had a chuckle. She probably took a little slight to it, but nonetheless, yeah, it was. I came out of the East, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, one thing we know, you've ran the race enough times. The unpredictability of the Bermuda weather often plays a major factor on the
Mhm.
day. You
Yes.
you know you have humidity, you have wind, you have rain, you have so many different obstacles to deal with that you really can't prepare for until the day that happens, because you could be training in the rain a lot or training in what I mean, in the heat a lot, and something totally different. But how did you manage preparing for the race, and then of course whatever happened on race day?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously you have to sort of assimilate some of your training to be on course with what you're gonna sort of encounter on the day. Even this week here, like I ran this morning, it was really really nice. Was the humidity was low. It was like I was like, well, if it's like this on Friday, the runners should have should be refreshing. Now, mind
Yeah.
you, this was 6:15, to like 7:05 in the morning. So so it wasn't at 8:30. So but it was refreshing. But then tomorrow, and as I look at it, the forecast, it's going to have some rain. If it's not a consistent flow of rain, then that
Hmm.
means if we have showers, I think it's going to make it worse, because I think it would just drive the humidity to be higher,
Yeah.
and you just have to hydrate and be very conscientious of how you run the race. I mean, a lot of it is you can't control your competitors, but you can control yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that you have to give yourself the opportunity. So whether it's the hydration, the nutrition, all of the things that you would be normally doing, you have to just continue with that, and then just hope. But for some people, the weather impacts some people more than others, especially if you're coming from sort of a colder climate to Bermuda. It's a little tricky here, so like that. But yeah, but when you're based here, I think you get a little bit of everything.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Are you a runner that likes the sun on your back, or sun in your face?
I mean, it didn't really matter to me. Yeah, it's kind of like you just wear a little sunglasses, or a little hat or whatever to give yourself the shade. I wasn't really bothered too much by the sun itself. The rain was, I mean, if it could have rained every year, that would have been even greater for me because I actually love running in the rain.
Right.
But I think we only experienced that maybe once or twice in my tenure running. But yeah, it's kind of, yeah, you just have to adapt and just know that whatever the conditions is, it's there for everyone.
Sure.
But it might impact you a little bit more than it impacts the people you're running against as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's in your favor.
Yeah, because conditions are for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has to run in the same conditions. It's not like you're
Yeah.
running in a vacuum and they're running to something else. So
Right.
yeah.
Now, if it's windy, you could be a little bit strategic and where you place yourself.
Yes.
You could definitely utilize that a bit and run
Right.
sort of an accordion, and but and utilize some of the runners to block the wind for you a
Right.
bit. But
Good.
that comes with a bit of experience and
Yeah.
or just knowing where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Looking back at your previous Bermuda Day half marathons, is there a particular moment or memory that stands out as especially meaningful or even challenging? And what did you learn from that experience?
I would say the very first one that I ran in 1989, I was like 16.
Mhm.
And I was basically transitioning from being basically a high school runner, a teenager, and I was allowed to, well, not allowed, but I mean, based on my age, I was eligible to run the race, um, legally, and I think I finished ninth that year, and it was a stellar field, of runners and like that, and I think from that day. What it basically taught me was that this is something that I could really do and excel in in this race here, and sort of it was a special day. I have this picture of me running, and I look so young, real so young, back then, and
You
you could
still look
just
young, brother. You still
oh,
look
I
young.
appreciate I really appreciate that. Yeah, I just got all the grays cut out, so just before the interview. So yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got them. I got a few of them cut out. But but when I look at the picture, you could see the sort of awe and the on the faces of some of the spectators, and and I can only imagine that they probably couldn't believe such a young person was so high up into the race like that, and
Right.
there's a lady in there, and she's just got this like shock and awe, like that. So that was the start, but I didn't run it again until 1996. So I had a break in between that,
Wow.
and then once I came back to Bermuda in '96. That's when I started, running it, more on a consistent basis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. The local running community is incredibly supportive, especially on this day. You have people that like you say, they never come out. You never see them on a regular race day, but on this particular day, they line the street. There's different parishes that have different groups that meet up with you and kind of thing. But how much did that support along the route help you? But also, how much did you have to stay within yourself? Because, like you were talking about, the Camp Hill area, you could actually be comfortably in the race, but that excitement makes you do something that you really wasn't planning to do at that precise moment.
Yeah, it's well, yeah, to answer the first part of it, obviously, to get the support is great. And I think most runners, regardless of what level they're at, would sort of express the same sentiments. Like when you just get the people out there that are just screaming for you and all that, you don't really get an opportunity to really like sort of get into your own mind and think about how tired you are because you're getting constant support like that. As I said before, the Camp Hill sort of thing, it just, even though you knew it was coming, I mean, you just had to react to it. So you
Right.
definitely got sucked into it, and it was a great feeling. But then once you came off the hill there by Riddles Bay or the old Flavors, like that, then you kind of like it's a bit of a lull. And then you kind of feel like, oh, wait a minute, now maybe I ran a little bit too hard right here. But and then you got Burnt House Hill just waiting for you around the corner, like that. But I always, for me, and people was probably going to be surprised to hear this, but I found like if you interview a lot of people and they ask like some of the difficult parts of the course and everything, especially coming out of the West. A lot of people, refer to Burnt House Hill, but I actually found Burnt House Hill to be quite easy in a sense, because it was like I broke it down into it has like two shelves to it, and my ability, I guess that was just part of the talent that I was given. My ability to be able to run hills effectively like this. That hill didn't really bother because I ran it in two tiers like that. If you understand, I kind of just broke it down into like two shelf tiers. And but it was some of the other hills that that sort of get to you. But when you get into Hamilton, it's the accumulation of the hills prior, which makes some of the other hills in the city really difficult. So like Queen Street, when you come over that hill by Kentucky and Mr. Chicken, and then you make the right hand turn. The cathedral looks like it's it looks like it's at Fort Hamilton, like that, and it is a very difficult portion of it, and it is only because of the accumulation of the hills prior. Like if I started off by Alberfeld here and just ran into town, I would just lick through town, like no problem. But you got 10 and a half, 11 miles of running in your legs prior to that, so it just makes it that much more difficult. But I think now the runners cut down onto Cedar Avenue now, so they don't have to negotiate that last little incline by the cathedral, and then coming down to the King Street and coming over by the fire station. Yeah, so that's sort of taking that out is significant as well, because while it's so close to the finish line, it is some like mental hurdles that you have to get over, or you would have had to get over like that. But once you got on top of King Street, and then you're looking down at Victoria, it almost looks like you're going downhill like skiing, because it really does feel you feel the difference. You feel the difference.
Yeah, definitely. No, every year there was always talk who was going to win. It was head down favorite. You were always in the running of a favorite. How did you manage the pressure leading up to races, and what was your primary goal? Like each year, did you set yourself some goal? And I know others have already said, they set themselves a time, or they just come across the line first kind of thing. But was it purely about win or a personal best, or was it just something else the day that just made you feel like I just want to accomplish this?
Yeah, I think for me it was. As I look back in hindsight of it, and hindsight is always 20/20. I mean, I guess the ultimate was always to try to win, and then the more the years went on, and I didn't win, then I think there was a bit of added pressure, to say, okay, well, this is going to be, that year, like that, and then for whatever reason it doesn't work out. I mean, I came through an era of some really good runners, and and as I reflect back on it, I finished second 8 times, 5 to Kevin Smith, and twice to Terrence, and then once to Larry Marshall Jr. Those were the 8, like things like that. But when I look back at it, it was, those were days that you're just beaten by some better runners, and that's at that time. But my goal was always to try to win, stay within, try to, it sounds cliche, but try to, to run your own race.
Right.
But sometimes you have to sort of, take a gamble and really go for it, like that, and and just hope that it works out for you, But for me, it was just trying to be better than you were the year before, and try to overcome. But I just kind of, no matter what happened, you sort of acknowledge the disappointment of that day, and you keep things into perspective, and then you say, okay, well, you can come back the next year, and kind of like for me, it was always it was always like, I had a tremendous amount of support, and then
Right.
you hear different things, the whole thing of the notion of common sacking and everything
Right.
that's associated with that. But
Mhm.
I always said to myself, well, one day they'll never call me as a quitter, like
Right.
that, and that was my driving, force to just keep coming back, because everybody. A lot of people, when they get knocked down, knocked down, they just eventually just stay down. And for me, it
Right.
was like, okay, don't give up. That was
Mhm.
always my mantra, and I think that was the significance of me winning in 2017. It was more than just me winning the race. It was showing people that in life, no matter what, and
Yeah.
sometimes things don't happen at your time, because if I'm honest, I actually thought I would have won that race like way back, like when I was in my early 20s or whatever
Right.
like that. And
Right.
then I didn't win it until I was like 44 years old. So so not everything happens when you want it to happen, and you
Hmm.
have to acknowledge that. And then for whatever reason, but I think from it, a lot of people were galvanized, and sort of they rallied behind that whole idea of like they can sort of you know in their lives, in their own personal lives,
Accomplish a goal. Yeah. Yeah.
try to accomplish the goal, like
Yeah.
that. So, yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Beyond.
Mhm.
Sorry. Beyond the
Well,
competition. Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
no, you go,
Okay. Beyond the competition itself, what did participating in the Bermuda Day Half Marathon mean to you personally as a Bermudian athlete? And what message did you hope your performance sent to aspiring young runners on the island?
Yeah, I mean, it meant a lot, because, like I said, it's a unique event. It's a unique event, an event that everybody wants to be a part of. And even listening to some of the radio shows, in the last couple of days, coming into work, and
Mhm.
different people talking about where you're gonna watch the runners, and it's just people that don't normally, wouldn't even go out and watch a running race.
Yeah.
All of a sudden are really interested. So to be a part of it, to be a part of that. To be a part of the history of the event itself. I always looked at it as, you know, um, from an athletic standpoint, and I tell my boys this all the time. It's like, I looked at it as, I was a caretaker of athletics, a caretaker of the sport, a caretaker of this specific event. May
Mhm.
24th. There are runners before me. There are runners after me. But all I tried to do was just try to respect the sport, provide a level of integrity as I competed, and just went out there and tried to, just give a good go at it. And then just allow people to say, what, like I hope I can just try to be not like Jay, but just just to sort of get the younger kids to be interested in track and field, and running, in general, and just try to get out there. So for me, that's what it was more about, just trying to protect the integrity of the sport and the event itself. And I think the event has lasted all these years, and it's going to go on long after me. So and that's kind of how I look at it. It's not about Jay Donawa. It's it was 24th of May before Jay, and it's 24th of May after Jay. But I'm just
Yeah.
thankful that I was able to play a part, in
Yeah.
it, and part of history, in the event. So that's what I sort of feel the most proud of, in this event. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we're 2 days away from the start of the race.
Mhm.
If you were running and you was looking to win the race, what would be your routine today and tomorrow leading into the race?
Um, well, well, traditionally, what I would have done, I always took the 2 days, 2 days before the event. I took that day off. So I'd have run yesterday, I'd have took today off, and then
Hmm.
tomorrow, I would have got up and did like a little shakeout run, and everything like that, and then just try to minimize any energy expenditure, during the course of the day, but not,
Right.
become a hermit, and just, and go outside of the norm, because sometimes you can put yourself into a bit of a dive,
Hmm.
mentally, and physically, because if you're a person that doesn't normally sleep a lot and all that, there, it can make you very
Yes.
lethargic and everything. So it's kind of like trying to keep keep a flow, and
Uh,
I probably wouldn't be at work like I am now. I probably would have no, out of key work today, but maybe tomorrow I would have just had that day off and just
mhm.
tried to collect myself and really just just hone in on what the goal was for the next the next day.
Right.
Now if it was Jay running on Friday, the Jay that's running now, probably out of Kentucky like I did earlier, and did all of that because I ran this morning and I ran yesterday, and so
Right.
I'm still very active. I just love running, so I just get
Right.
up. I don't I'm not like some of the I see a lot of people are running. They got the fancy like the Apple watches and all these
Yes.
fancy shoes and all that, and I
Yes.
just and I just smile to myself because I was never really and take this for what it's worth. I don't want to call them gimmicks, but I'm a pretty traditional type person. I was sponsored by Pro Shop for almost 18, 19 years, and I
Right.
ran with Adidas, and I was very very practical, very pragmatic, and in terms of what I wore and everything like that. So I was never really a person that like to be too loud and and all of
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
I see the people out there that got these $200 or $300 Nike shoe, the ones that
Oh yeah.
the heel looks about like
Yes. Yes.
if they step on a pebble, it looks like they'll just break the ankle one time, like that. So yeah, so that would have been pretty much my my routine, for
Right.
this week, for this week, and
Uh,
just hope that you get the rest because it's even but tonight would have been probably the most important night of rest, the
uh,
2 nights before, because you have to account that the night before, with all of the nerves and everything that come with it, you probably won't get the best sleep, that
right.
you want. So tonight would have been definitely the night that I would have turned off all my devices and made sure I went and got a really really solid night of sleep,
Right.
because anybody would tell you the night before the race, it's a lot of anxiety that's attached to it, and then logistically for me, having to come from Somerset now to go to St. George's,
Right.
you had to leave that much earlier as opposed to when it was off Somerset. I used to just roll off the hill. So, so
Right.
it was, a lot different, but I mean, everybody experiences it, whether if you live on one end of the island, you're going to experience that. There's
Mhm.
people that live in Warwick and Paget that have the best of both worlds,
Right. Right.
not too far either way.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you're in a different role now. You'll be
Yeah.
commentating the race. So wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And you get to see what people saw of you during the race, because you get to see the person challenge the hill or even be beaten on the hill kind of thing. Uh,
Yes.
so yeah, it's a different view of you
Yes.
that you now get of what people saw of you in racing. So enjoy
Right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of, it just for me it was just I just tried to paint a picture, from
Uh-huh.
the experience that I've had in terms of
Yeah.
what you see in front of you,
Right.
and I think that's the most important thing. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the most knowledgeable, but I have a lot of knowledge, as it
Yes.
relates to running, and I just try to be as objective, as possible, going out there. But I won't lie, to say that, I do feel a little bit of the anxiety and everything that's associated with the event like that. Like I woke up this morning, I actually felt a little nervous, like that, like
Ah,
how I would have, felt, so that competitive nature of me is still there. And I know what the runners are going through, especially, the runners that are really going to be running for the primary positions. I
right.
understand what how they feel, like that. It's, it's something that, when you're away from the sport, you don't miss it.
Right.
You don't miss that aspect of it, but you do miss running, but you don't miss all of all of those little things. So I just say to all the runners that are competing, regardless of what your goals and ambitions are for the day, just to go out there and just try to be better than what you were the day before, and just and see what happens. It's all about, life is about challenges, and
Mhm.
and just giving it your all. And I think, I pray that it's going to be a beautiful day, and for all the runners, and I just pray for the safety and all the runners and any riders, And if there's any rollerbladers, I'm not sure if Almo or any of them guys are going to be out there, but
Right.
yeah, I just hope that it's a great day for all,
Yes, indeed.
and just go from there. Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, we'll be talking with you sometime soon.
Yes.
Enjoy Friday and all the best.
Yes. You as well.
You know,
Yeah.
this
Yes, you as
day.
well, Earl.
Yeah,
And
thank you, man.
yeah, it's really great. It's really great to be able to talk to you in this capacity here. And I just wish you, health and just, health and strength and just keep continuing to do what you do, because you play a significant role in, as I said before, the caretaker role, but you bring sports to everybody, and not just the popular sports. You bring all the sports, and I think that what you do is fantastic, and I'm just glad that you're able to still be able to do it, and I wish you many, many more. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you as well. All the best.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, brother.